welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q.
I've had a fun time playing quite a bit of Half-Life Alyx over the Thanksgiving break, which we came back from not too long ago as of the time of recording.
Thank you for taking a break from your alternate reality to join me. I had no idea.
It's quite intense to be there for too long. It's there are portions of it that are a bit scarier than I typically allow myself to to experience, especially in VR. But really good game. Did some really smart things with the VR platform, and it really kind of feels like a gold standard. You know, that's the bar to hit going forward, and I don't know, it inspires me.
I think that's really cool. I mean, definitely Alyx is one of those VR experiences that almost make me try and push through the Facebookiness of my Oculus that's sitting here packed up. Yeah, I every time I watch it, I'm like, ooh, this seems like it would be really good and be a thing for me. And I'm wondering if it sounds like you recommend it.
Yeah, it is very good. It's I mean, if there's any kind of, fear of the dark or just discomfort with things lunging at your head, then you will be forced to face some uncomfortable situations. But, I don't feel like it's not taking the piss, it's making an honest effort to tell a good story. And it's not just, sitting you in front of a jump scare simulator. Like it is scary, but it feels like we're really going on a journey.
I don't know if this is a fair question for it or not, but does it feel like what Half-Life deserved after all these years? It felt like it was the meme of the industry for so long of like Half-Life 3. Would it ever happen? Would anything like it ever happen?
Yeah, I have never been like a tremendous Half-Life fan. I mean, I like Half-Life 2. I was there not right at launch, but in the years following, I played it and it did kind of open my eyes to what, first-person shooters could do. But I never held that series in, even though I thought Half-Life 2 was revolutionary and great, and I enjoyed the time that I spent with it. It inspired me when I was in high school. I was never like, I must see what the follow-up to this is. I was more of like, okay, now that these ideas are out in the world, I'm excited to see what shooters are going to become on kind of the macro scale. So, I've not really been one that's been kind of, biting my nails waiting for Half-Life 3,
right?
Because I think we've gotten what Half-Life 3 would have delivered from dozens of other developers by this point. There have been fantastic shooters ever since then. And, Half-Life 2 helped build that world, and Half-Life 1 before that. I'm thankful for the impact that it had. But, going back into Half-Life Alyx has made me kind of realize that, Half-Life does have a unique identity. And there was a part of me that kind of missed being back in this world. And also now that I'm back in that world, there's a part of me that remembers that I was happy to be out of it as well, because it is a dreary world. It's kind of like Eastern European, during the apocalypse. It's not a hopeful world. It's not a world where there's a lot of people that are that happy to see you.
Right.
It's a very oppressive feeling, which, they've built intentionally. Everything is broken. Everything is corrupted and nasty and horrible, but in a really interesting way. And so, I'm glad to be back, but it's, I don't feel like there's a story out there that can only be told through the lens of Half-Life.
Got it. That makes sense to me. And I do think that, you're right. Nothing ever, to me, felt like what Half-Life did, but maybe that's for good reason. If that's a very specific vehicle that can really only tell a specific type of story. But it's, I guess it's good to know it's out there.
Yeah, cool game. Plenty of great VR moments, and I'm sure as I continue to play and as some of those moments continue to kind of rattle around in my head, I might pull those into some of my future pitches. I am not today working on something entirely different, but I think I think we should hear from you first.
My pitch this week is actually, speaking of horror games, or at least games that are spooky, I am a fan of a Twitch streamer. Her name is Cuppa Noodle. And she tends to stream a lot of horror games. She was recently streaming, I think, a Five Nights at Freddy's thing. But I was watching her and I got this sense of, what if this was a game? So like a fusion of something like Her Story, where there's kind of text-based, operating system-based text interactions, but you are communicating with a streamer and you've got to guide the streamer almost like Twitch plays, but it's a person who you're talking to. And you've got to guide them through another game that you both don't really know. And maybe if we want to do a horror spin on it, if they mess up in the game, then they die.
All right, let's go ahead and start the clock there. So are we, sorry if I missed this during the pitch, but are you thinking like, I don't know how to put this, a human streamer or like a VTuber? I'm still getting used to that terminology, so I don't know if I even fully comprehend everything that entails.
Yeah, I'm too old man to really know the difference, so I'm gonna say the words Twitch streamer and hope that makes sense to both of us. But I'm honestly, I'm only as sure as I can be. I like the idea of you are in a chat, and you're interacting with the person playing the game. Maybe even throughout the course of a limited controlled story, we can introduce other people to that, like, come into the chat, and then you end up maybe communicating with them, debating them. Maybe they are driving the streamer in a different direction, that sort of thing.
So what are the kind of specific interactions that we can have? I know that there are some games that have Twitch specific integrations. People in the chat can vote on certain things happening in the game, but I would love for this to be something that's a little bit more like Emily is Away, or those, those horror movies that all take place over Skype calls or whatever, something that really feels like there's some level of kind of like fourth wall breaking, maybe some supernatural element that's kind of reaching through the platform.
There was actually a super good one of those this year, but it was a Shudder exclusive. It was called Host, and it had this group of young women doing a seance over Zoom, presumably, and chaos ensued. But yeah, I like the idea of this person's playing a scary game. It's almost like you're having the interactions would almost, I in my mind, feel like a modernization of a text adventure in a way, right? Because you're kind of saying, oh, you should open that, or hey, you should do this, or hey, try that over there. And the ability to guide them, have them do things, but then maybe as the story starts to progress, there's a question as to whether or not this is the things that are happening in the game are purely locked to the game world, and are they spilling out into the streamer's world? And I feel like, are they spilling out into your world, which is kind of an Inception number of layers, but we could just do spilling out into the streamer's world in some way.
There's a fairly early on in the Playwright run, we talked about a idea of a game where you play a kind of a radio host, a late night radio host, and as you take calls and requests and play different records, it starts to have kind of presumed supernatural effects on the town that you're overseeing, and then some of that starts kind of creeping into the studio space, and you can have kind of ghostly encounters based on doing very specific things with your radio show. I would like if we can kind of incorporate some of those, like, I think the thing about being a Twitch viewer is that, unlike being a radio host where you are the one DJ, any Twitch viewer is really kind of one in 100,000 people that are viewing at any specific time, or how much effect can one person really have? I mean, maybe that even makes it creepier once it becomes clear that, things are happening specifically to us. Maybe we start off feeling kind of disempowered, like we're voting with 10,000 other people on what the next action should be in the game, but then maybe we find ways that we have direct impacts on the game world. It kind of feels like at first we're skipping the queue, but then once things start kind of going wrong and start happening, then it starts feeling like we're being too conspicuous, you know?
Yeah, I do like the idea of even playing with mechanics in terms of, would we do like allowing you to maybe have a limited, this is almost a night trap format now, where you could jump into other people's streams and maybe see future parts of the game where somebody else is in a different level of progress. But, you know, there's multiple people playing, but they're getting stuck at different points, stuff like that. And then you can kind of get hints as to what to do next through watching and engaging with other streamers, or popping in other streams and asking questions. Hey, like, how did you get past that, the golden door, and see if they will answer you on stream. It would require quite the AI worth of interaction, I feel like, but it would be so cool to pull off.
There was that game Facade. Do you remember Facade?
Facade, no.
It was a game in which, I think it was even programmed on Flash, like a very, very like early internet game. I want to say early internet. People who actually were around in the early, you know, altboards internet are probably rolling their eyes. But I think of like this kind of golden age of the internet around like the early 2000s, maybe late 2000s, 2005 to 2008, maybe. But anyways, a Flash game in which you visit a couple who are hosting a dinner party at their house. The premise of the game is that you can pretty much type anything in and they'll react to it. And you can kind of steer the conversation as it goes throughout the night. They go on and do different tasks, and you can upset them, or you can cause, you know, rifts in their relationship. And it was very kind of open-ended for what it did. And so open-ended, in fact, like it felt very mysterious, almost in a haunted game kind of way. Like it felt like there have to be rules structuring what they can and can't react to, but the rules are so obscure and are never stated to you. You're never given, you know, the boundaries, what you can and cannot say, that, I mean, it felt like the game was alive and could really understand you. Like it was a great simulation of an actual intelligence there. Like, so, you know, if something like that was able to be done on kind of an indie budget back then presumably we could do something that feels a little bit more, you know, different streamers with different personalities, open text entry, you know, that kind of thing is possible anyways.
I'm trying to think about, if there's also a, you know, Mixer was doing this at one point, poor Mixer. But the idea of there were kind of emotes or interactions that would also trigger things to happen in the game, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if there's also, like, in our fictional streaming platform, if we do give the user some level control over how they do that, or what kind of interactions they can have.
Maybe there are malevolent actors in the comments as well, and you have to kind of convince the streamer to turn off certain features, maybe by being a rude commenter and, you know, causing them to turn off comments for a little while, to protect them from, I don't know, whatever the commenting equivalent of like a DDoS attack would be.
What do you think we could do with other players entering in? Like, could there be sort of malevolent AI that comes in to create argument or discord, or do we create a fake little in-game Twitch currency where you're able to send bits or something to outvote other players, and those are things that you can earn somehow by helping streamers? Like, streamers can award you with these little bits, and you're going back and forth and seeing who you're going to reinvest those bits in or something. Let's call them crazy bucks. That feels appropriate.
Yeah, and maybe you're only allowed to post a certain number of times on each channel per day, and you can buy more posts. And so, you know, if something really hazardous comes up, then you can intervene, but it makes you kind of pick and choose what you say and when, and what inputs you have. You know, when we were talking about this game potentially kind of reaching out into the player's world as well, One of the things that I kind of enjoy when it happens, but I'm never really expecting it, is when games utilize my like keyboard's RGB lights. I know whenever I boot up like Mortal Kombat 11 or Far Cry 5, like it always does kind of like cute things. Like Far Cry 5 is great. It like waves the pattern of an American flag on my keyboard. And it's just like, it's a fun little kind of partnership there that they strung up with with Corsair or probably other manufacturers as well. Just as a little bit of extra kind of, bang for your buck. But if we could do things like that, utilize PC hardware in ways that are invisible for most of the game until they happen. So, maybe you do have keyboard lighting integration and you wait until kind of like Doki Doki Literature Club things start breaking down and start glitching out. And then you can cause weird messages to appear on the keyboard or black out the keys. And, it's like certain things like that. Maybe as you type in messages, certain letters don't work anymore. And then those letters are kind of blacked out on the light up keyboards. And, like you can have objects pop, off out of the game window into another monitor, and like anything like that happens like 6/7 of the way through the game instead of from the very beginning is going to be more scary because you're kind of accustomed to not seeing that happen.
That's interesting. So now you're in a kind of a world where you're able to start having like is that, I'm sorry, I described too many layers. Is that my personal hardware? Or is that the in-game hardware or?
Your own personal real life hardware.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I like that. And then there's all these kind of subtle things that happen to the interface and clues and notifications. Maybe you start receiving these mysterious messages as you help someone with their game, and then you find yourself slowly like wondering, what have I gotten myself into here, as you go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole.
We're out of time. Let's go ahead and wrap that one up. What do we want to call it?
Man, it's too bad that this doesn't play as a standalone word, but instead of scream, I do like stream. But
stream of consciousness, stream of...
Oh, interesting.
We do a stream of conscious, like consciousness. I don't know if that makes any sense. Should we do Stream Queen? Stream Queen.
I don't know. That's
or Scream Stream.
Scream Stream. Oh my God. Scream. Nightmare on Scream Stream. All right. No, that's okay. I think Scream is pretty good. It can, if it's cheesy, all the better. That invokes the Night Trap sort of vibe to the whole thing.
Yeah, that is fun. Good old FMV games. All right. My pitch for the day is a 2-player game. There is 1 player on either side of a flat disc with cities kind of jutting out of both sides. You have to kind of run around Mario Galaxy style and jump on the buildings to make them kind of pop into the other side, making the other side's city larger and your city smaller. And so I guess whoever has the biggest city at the end of the timer is the one that loses. So that's what I have so far. Let's see if we can build on that. Let's start the clock.
So I guess I'm trying to think about like how, if this is going to feel a little bit more frantic or if this can be a kind of more chill sort of experience.
I think it would be kind of frantic. More of like a Mario Party style mini game in a way, but I think you could reward people for being patient as well. Maybe there's kind of like a Bravely Default system where if you stand still, then you gather power. Obviously, your opponent is, left, right, and center, just kind of popping buildings onto your side. That's wasted time, but maybe it gives you kind of a larger butt slam radius when you do resume. Maybe certain buildings have power-ups within them, and so you kind of want them to trigger certain buildings on your side. So maybe you can see battleship style, like certain buildings that like glow golden, They can't see it on their side, and so you're trying to kind of lead them towards the part of this disk, this flat planet that you're on, by kind of leading a breadcrumb trail of buildings that they have to revert on there, and to kind of lead them towards buildings that have bonuses for you.
I'm wondering if like this mode has something of a, not a Smash TV, but what am I thinking of? Kind of Rampage sort of feel to it, where like there is a quick way for me to target these buildings. Am I able to leap between buildings in this scenario?
Yeah, I was thinking it would be kind of like, I was thinking of Mario Galaxy, whenever you have to kind of like butt slam something to get it to pop up on the other side of the planet. But I've never been a huge fan of the butt slam mechanic. I mean, it's fine, but if the only mechanic is to slam things across this board, then maybe it makes more sense to just be able to do it with like a regular jump instead of having to kind of perform that second action in the air every single time. But maybe there's fun in that as well. Maybe there's something to be said for, particularly tall buildings might appear on your side. Maybe instead you can climb them, jump off the top, and get some extra speed to your slam, and it get more of like an area of effect type of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
It could be a little bit of like Garo Home, a little bit of Mario Galaxy, a little bit of Rampage.
Now my mind is like, can we do we like take some of the controller triggers or something and allow you to do some additional butt wiggle or twerk motion where you can trigger some aftershocks or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you should be able to kind of move around in the air. But yeah, I just love, destructive mechanics. So like, I think it would also be interesting if the size of this planet could kind of grow over time as well. And so maybe you start on a pretty compact disk and you're essentially kind of ping-ponging, 5 or 6 buildings back and forth. But over time, it can grow to be, quite a sizable world where, you can kind of hide some of your destruction from your opponent, or maybe you can scatter about the buildings that you're sending their way. It's kind of like Tetris multiplayer, where if you're doing well, like it's definitely a zero-sum game, like somebody else is paying the price, you're sending deliberate obfuscations their way. Yeah, so fun ways that this can kind of evolve and stay competitive throughout the match.
It almost makes me think of, I recently made homemade pasta for the first time, and once you develop enough gluten in dough, you can kind of push dough in a direction and it'll spring back on you. And I wonder if like we continue to power up the butt stomps in a way, and until eventually like your butt stomp is powerful enough to kind of jut out a piece of the world, and you're slowly like kind of, you want to butt stomp on opposite sides very evenly to ensure that the planet like doesn't fly off of its axis or something, and you keep it kind of circular.
Yeah, if there was kind of a balancing effect as well. Obviously, if there were players on both sides, then you couldn't tip over unless each player has gravity pulling in opposite directions. That's interesting as well. So maybe...
Yeah, because your goal could also be to like knock off the gravity of somebody else's whole deal, right?
Yeah, so there's kind of a central axis. As you stomp, it kind of teeter-totters one way or the other. If you go too far, then it could completely flip, and then both players are kind of stuck on, maybe at that point, it's kind of like you're inside of a globe, like there's kind of a sphere surrounding this flat plane, kind of like those motorcycle drivers at the circus who drive around the inside of this sphere. And so then you have to kind of like run to get back onto this disc. It's kind of like in Mario sometimes how you can butt stomp on something and it sends an enemy flying off of the platform in the other way.
That's cool. Now you can actually, like, now we start to play with this concept of layers, and then like layer 1 is all about smashing the buildings, right? Because they're the highest up and you're just trying to flatten them, whatever. And then layer 2 is all in the game of like pushing out the planet until I do like the idea of continuing to like push out until you can like, if it's a glass globe, like crack the outer edge of the glass and there becomes a vacuum and your opponent can be sucked out into space or something. Mm-hmm. And now it's like this 2-layer thing of you're both trying to almost play a big physical like whack-a-mole, but your character is the cursor essentially. And at the same time, you're defending against a player who's kind of knocking your whole thing off of its axis.
So we have a kind of an interesting perspective here. What can we do to the actual buildings? What can kind of make it feel like there's a progression happening throughout the match? Can buildings get bigger as time goes on? Can they progress through time? I don't know. What would be like an interesting progression to cause maybe if buildings do grow taller and taller, into real skyscrapers, then it takes longer for your opponent to climb to the very top of it. So the more times you bat something back and forth, that becomes both a significant amount of points that you're kind of dumping onto their side of the field when having fewer points renders you the winner. And it also, it causes them to choose between doing something that could be very costly to climb to the top because it takes a lot of time, or maybe they climb to the top and then they can jump off of that to use the kind of excess gravity to power up a very, very strong butt stomp. So maybe even kind of keeping a costly tower on their side to use it for its height. And then you are also risking them sending an even taller tower your way if you don't do it in the last, 10 seconds or whatever it is. So I do like that kind of range of challenges and trade-offs that it gives you.
Yeah, you can't stomp the sort of ground or the planet in any way until like there's no tower standing on your side. So the second that you first is a game of attrition or like building elimination in a way, and then then you move on to the
limit people and say that they can't stomp unless there's nothing on their side, like maybe.
No. I guess I meant like I can't. If we were going to have that second layer of like stomping the ground affects like the evenness of the ground in another direction. Well, there'll always be kind of buildings that stop you from being able to affect that. So the triage is like get all your buildings down, and as your buildings are down, you can start stomping the ground, but your opponent can then like start sending buildings back your way, and as the buildings get sent back, they're taller and taller until eventually, you have to climb every building as a skyscraper that you have, a couple seconds to climb before you can get up and stomp it.
Love that. It's great. All right, that's enough time on that one. Let's give it a name.
I mean, how can you not just love the term big butts? I feel like there's something charming about big butts.
I was also thinking about like how like City Razer, because if you like raise R-A-I-S-E versus raise R-A-Z-E mean opposite things, like that's kind of a fun, like it doesn't really work in text, but it works if you say it out loud.
City Razer.
It's kind of on a razor edge.
I like that.
Raising Metropolis.
Is there something about like maybe the word crush as well? Or I guess you're not technically crushing. You're almost digging to the other side of the world or something.
Yeah. Let's see.
I could take City Razer if we can.
City Razer. Okay. All right. I think that'll do for now then. Let's head over to our community and see what you have written into us today. Let's go to, let's hear what the city of Birmingham has to say. This is from the city of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. Having a hard time with that one for some reason. They have kindly written in to say that they would like to welcome us to our new series of digital concerts filmed at Symphony Hall for you to enjoy at home. Tickets to our first concert, centenary of the first concert, are now on sale. Filmed 100 years to the day of our first ever symphonic concert conducted by Sir Edward Elgar. We're delighted to be celebrating this occasion with you. And there's a few more details here. There's a weekly concert series. It looks quite nice, actually. It's That's a nice idea. I've seen a few kind of live performances performed over Zoom, mostly just kind of comedy stuff or theater type of stuff, but I've never seen an orchestra perform, and I really wonder how that would do in a remote environment. I don't know if the performers are remote as well, whether they have some sort of clever contraption to keep them all in time with one another, or whether they're performing together, taking the risk and broadcasting it out. But cool idea. I do like this idea of a virtual symphony. Let's see what we can do with that. Starting the clock there.
One of the things that I think is interesting here is the idea of like, I mean, we record remotely, but we don't play music together remotely. And like, how hard is it to, sync up playing something like music? That I imagine, well, maybe streaming stuff has gotten so low latency that it's not a problem, but boy, oh boy, it seems like it would be tough.
I wonder if there's a fun way to kind of generate symphonic music. I think about Fuser. Obviously, it's been on my mind a lot over the past few weeks because I've played quite a bit of it. You know, that's a lot of fun to be able to kind of generate these mixes on the go, to have the software figure out what sounds good together, and to kind of create these mixes on the fly that really work. There's, and obviously Harmonix has a history of kind of experimenting with this, from Rock Band 4 to Fantasia Music Evolved. Like maybe kind of taking a page from Fantasia, there's a way to kind of act like you are conducting an orchestra. Maybe this could be something that is Kinect controlled or PlayStation Move controlled, or even controlled with just a regular webcam and maybe some type of controller, but like something you can do with your hands in the motions that like a real orchestra conductor would take. And you can select the key, you can select the, major or minor, whether, or even like more specific scales that this be kind of played within to give it different flavors, and different hand motions can cause the orchestra kind of to live react and to play different, entirely computer generated music as it goes. You can cue certain sections to come in at certain times. You can, of course, raise or lower the tempo of the performance with, the beat that you're keeping with your hand. Thinking about the Mr. Bean special where he conducts that the band of street performers for Christmas, and just thinking of like fun ways that you can give special cues to the different sections and really kind of create something that feels unique and generative in an orchestral setting.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is giving me real Fuser vibes, right? Where there's all this ability to kind of control the music. I'm also wondering, I mean, I guess it's maybe too much in the Fuser column, but like the way that you can server mute individuals and stuff and adjust their volume levels in something like Discord. If you get some ability to kind of control the performance for that from that perspective. But one thing that I do kind of like is maybe the ability to have this group that you're conducting, or even that you're kind of watching and interacting with, take, what am I trying to think of here? Not take requests, but I guess I'm thinking about how they could potentially get some kind of feedback from me, or maybe, okay, I'm not really happy with any of this. I'm just wondering.
Maybe there could be different challenges that you can face. Maybe there could be a version where you are kind of generating your own music. Maybe there's a version where you're performing in front of a crowd and you really have to kind of feel the energy of the crowd. I don't know I've been to a few, symphonic performances before. I don't know how much the conductor is funneling the energy that the crowd's giving off, because people tend to be seated, quiet, and quite polite.
During these things.
Yeah, maybe even a few people kind of falling asleep. But so I don't know what they would choose to do differently from one performance to the next.
Oh man, what if What if all of your performers themselves were kind of falling asleep on a continual basis, and you had to keep cutting to them to get them to wake up, or to get you have to listen for the parts of the music that are getting out of sync, and then choose to highlight that performer to kind of get them back in. So you're listening to the performances, you get during warm-ups and stuff, the lay of the land of who's playing what, and then something where you can quickly toggle between them and make things happen that way.
So I do like this idea of, and this is something that a real orchestra would have to kind of contend with, it. Like, these aren't instruments playing themselves. Like, these are real people, and each one has a personality. Maybe there could be drama in between some of the people as you go. Maybe, the seating chart and the arrangement of, who's sat next to who could really affect how the performances come out. I don't know.
I know that I used to play, and here's something that's funny to think about. I was a member of the Lowell Accordion Orchestra, which I think I've talked about before here, even though I played piano for that orchestra. When we were playing, when you got kind of a look from the conductor and this gesture of beckoning during a performance, that she needed you to be more forceful, play a lot more authoritatively, step up and hit your notes really well. And so the idea being able to kind of beckon members of the performance and to say, hey, I need more out of violin right now. I need more out of the bass at these moments. And I'm trying to figure out how I can steer this away from just being the fuser, kind of like, I want to hear more cello at the moment, and how to kind of bring it into another space. But I'm struggling a little bit. Boy. Okay, what do I see? I'm really taking a step back in this, because it's such a striking image in this email of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 musicians all playing 6 feet apart. And I'm wondering, like, does that visual create an interface? Does it create a control pattern or something like that for us? Does it maybe even give us a challenge?
Look at pictures of like a full orchestra, then it is, there's something really impressive about those kind of wall-to-wall performers. There's so many people that are packed into that little space. It's impressive to have control over that many people. Maybe there's even kind of almost like a rear view mirror, like you would get in a racing game, that can show you the crowd, or other information that might be useful at the time.
Oh, okay. So now this is starting to come to me. So imagine we have these musicians. They're all in a circle. They're 6 feet apart or whatever. But it's a perfect configuration to give us like a radial menu control interface in a way. And as us, the conductor, in the center of it, we can do a few things. We can beckon. We can tell people to kind of quiet down. We can wave our hand and set pace. And maybe we can, throw in a couple other gesticulations, which, silence somebody or get someone to come back. It's a little fuser-like, but it's far more about performance calibration and balance within a single symphony piece. And then we get some kind of, imagine the rock band vocals like score across the top, where we're seeing what the performance expectation is as originally intended by these things. And you have to use your radial menu to quickly jump around to all of these performers and say, when you hear the flute slightly off, okay, time to pivot to the flute and set pace over there. But then you're noticing the cello's getting quiet. I flip over to the cello, and then I'm over at the French horn saying, back down on the French horn. There's too much here. And really feeling like you are this conductor of a small scale orchestra. Of course, you could blow it out and make every radial wheel show you, 40 French horn players. But I do like this idea of you know, a conductor's really doing this really delicate juggling act at the same time of like trying to realize the entire piece of the music while getting each individual musician or music section to execute on their individual parts of it, you know, very precisely.
It's a good point. I think we are just about out of time on that one.
It took me to the end to finally spew out a bunch of stuff.
No, I think it's interesting. I think any kind of musical game, I'm always really kind of in the mood for. So, you know, excited to try to come up with the name for this one. And of course, as we always do, throw it back to the community and see if you have any other kind of insights that might be able to kind of push us over the edge on this one as well. So anyways, let's come up with a name for now.
What do you think of something, this is a classic playwright pun, what do you think of centerpiece or something? So we're talking about you being in the center, but also pieces of music.
Centerpiece. I don't know if that's a musical term. Let's think of like conduct or
getting into trouble.
Symphony. Yeah, bad conduct could be a way to spin this.
It would have to have like everyone's designed as 90s characters or something for that to really hit.
All right. Anyways, thank you very much, the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, for sending that one in. And if you would like to send something in yourself, you can do so by going to playwrightcast.com/pitch. You can email us playwrightcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at playwrightcast.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. And while you're listening to things, why not go check out the other great shows on the Cane and Rinse network, like Sound of Play, like Cane and Rinse, like The Sausage Factory, which I believe is the classical pronunciation.
The Saucy Factory, yeah.
That's right.
All right, let's take us out with a redacted game. I believe that you're the one that's going to be pitching this one today.
Okay, I'm excited for you to get this one, but I think it is just the perfect redacted game. Okay? Redacted is the sequel to the title named Game of the Year Redacted by over 30 publications around the world. Redacted.
Sorry, Game of the Year Redacted?
Yeah.
Is that redacting the year?
It is, exactly.
Okay.
Redacted promises to break new ground in next-generation gaming by expanding the award-winning recipe of innovative gameplay, immersive story, and creative inclusion of music, while also introducing redacted game modes.
Oh, and that's it? All right.
That's it.
It feels like the pieces of information I have to work with are, it's a sequel to a Game of the Year game.
Yeah, a well-lauded Game of the Year.
Okay. It incorporates musical elements, and it was at the beginning of a console generation. It was a next-gen upgrade on the previous gen game. So,
or it was a sequel that was on a new generation of experience.
I think with all of that in mind, the only game a couple games coming to mind, but the one that's coming to mind first is this Rayman Legends.
This is not Rayman Legends.
Okay, right. So right at the beginning of the Wii U generation, you know, it's kind of that the crossover there.
Although Rayman Legends, was one of the previous games Game of the Year by over 30 publications? That seems like
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a big reach for Rayman. Not that he doesn't deserve it. We love our separated legged friend.
Okay.
I know
in
it's
my recap, did I skip over any vital pieces of information in there, or was I pretty much catching on to everything?
I think at the end, where they're introducing a new sort of game mode is, and I would argue that game mode was kind of a centerpiece that defines the sequel from its predecessor.
Is this like I guess I shouldn't ask that many clarifying questions. New game mode. And how did they phrase the musical segment? How do they, what was the sentence that surrounded that?
Creative inclusion of music.
Like that also describes The Last of Us 2, but I don't feel like that would be the pull quote that you would put in the game's overall summary.
Ellie really rocks this one. I know this is such a short description, so if you do have, a clarifying question that I think doesn't give away the goat, I'm happy to
Okay, these new game modes, are these things that are kind of like mini games that are kind of on the side extras to discover, or is it more kind of incorporation of different gameplay styles into the main campaign, kind of like a Sly Cooper 2 type of upgrade?
This is a separate mode from the campaign that changes. That is it's just a fundamentally different take or concept on the core campaign. I know that's. Why don't I give you a 10 and a 0? How about that?
Okay.
All right, here we go. A 10.0. Fantastic game with at least 15 hours of playtime. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. Better than the first, totally worth the price. The cross-platform play is also exceptional. Well done. And then the 0. Come on, people. For how long are we going to take this crap? $60 for 5 hours? The critics are also getting more unbelievable every day, and most of us get fooled by them. The game industry, with its greed and lust for domination, is crumbling more and more every day.
Oh, gosh. All right.
So now we've got some playtime estimates. There was cross-play, which is interesting.
Potentially a shorter game. I'm thinking through kind of like full-priced short games that are still relatively well-received. I mean, okay, so again, everything about this could apply to Resident Evil 3 except for the music. Like, that just seems like a weird thing to call out if this was Resi 3.
Yeah.
Because, sequel to a game of the year, short playtime. Does it mention how, like, being a part of like a legendary series, or is it just a sequel to a game of the year and that's where it leaves it?
I believe the description says it is the sequel to the title named Game of the Year. And I would say the sequel is different from a sequel.
Is that still true?
It is, yes.
Okay. All right. Let's get some metadata. I feel like if I have the year, that would really help me out.
Yeah. So this is it's on 3 platforms, which I think says that, but I will name the platform that I assume you experienced it on.
Okay.
The number 1 best PC game of 2011. The number 2
2011?
2011. Yes, the number 2 most discussed PC game of 2011 and number 6 most shared PC game of 2000. Though it was on other platforms and well regarded on those other platforms as well.
All right, 2011. So if it's talking about, because it talks about being a next generation game, but this isn't really a point of generational shift,
right? Yeah,
this is too early for PS4 and Xbox One.
Yes, it is.
And does interesting things with music.
I wouldn't follow it so much down the path of it's using music like in interesting ways throughout, but rather it includes a creative use of.
Okay. I guess with that said, let's go through the description again and just see if anything new pings with this new information.
So 5 to 15 hours, somewhere in there. One of the best PC games of 2011. Number 1, actually. Redacted is the sequel to the title named Game of the Year Redacted by over 30 publications around the world. Redacted promises to break new ground in next-generation gaming by expanding the award-winning recipe of innovative gameplay, immersive story, and creative inclusion of music, while also introducing redacted game modes.
Sorry, I think I've already asked this. Have there been additional sequels since this point, or is this still the sequel?
Yeah, I will definitively say there has been no sequels to this. This is second of only 2 games in the series. So it hasn't been touched since 2011, basically.
Too late for Jet Set. And this is the year of Dark Souls. What else happened in 2011?
Lots of Dark Souls sequels.
Yep, there have been.
You kind of sussed out without saying it directly, but the other 2 platforms are PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It's short. And get this on the...
And this is a full-priced game as well?
It
is that what the Zero review was saying?
Yeah, well, it says it's well worth the $50. $50,
yeah.
In another review, so yeah. And I will say that it's the number 2 best PS3 game of 2011 and the number 2 best Xbox 360 game of 2011. So a huge hit, basically, wherever it ended up.
Gosh.
I know it's just short enough to really be, and kind of, using language that I think many other people would use to describe their game. I think that's why it fits the bill here. I'm going to give you one last thing. It is rated E10 plus.
All right. Am I in my third guess? Is that where we are right now?
This is it. Yeah. It wasn't Rayman, and it wasn't... Oh, no, wait a minute. What was your second guess?
I don't know if I said anything specifically, but I probably cutely danced around enough for it to cumulatively count.
Got it. It's definitely not Resident Evil 3.
Okay. 2011. It's too early for Res Infinite. It's too... let's see. Who was making sequels to short games? Was the original game also short?
I would say the original game was also short.
It
is really the inclusion of this additional game mode and therefore mechanic that truly, I think, separates the sequel from the original.
Okay. All right. Oh, I think I have a good guess. But
okay.
5 hours doesn't fit. Well, maybe.
Does 15?
Maybe if people were really speed running. All right. Is this Portal 2?
You son of a bitch.
Oh my gosh.
You got it.
Wow, I was just about ready to throw in the towel on that one.
Portal 2. Can you believe that description? So generic.
Yeah, gosh. There's so much more interesting stuff you could talk about in there.
I know. Yeah, if it's any consolation, that is the PlayStation 3 description, which is the most robust. Portal 2 is the sequel to the title named Game of the Year 2007 by over 30 publications. Portal 2 promises to break new ground, yada, yada, yada. Creative inclusion of music, including multiplayer co-op game modes.
Yeah.
And the 360 description is absolutely awful. The summary is just, Valve is working on a full-length sequel to its award-winning, mind-bending puzzle action game for the Xbox 360 and PC, which is speaking of it like it's a work in progress rather than an actual delivered game.
That's a good one. Great game. Glad we got there in the end. And I feel like that was the appropriate amount of suspense as well.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like we're back on track. I'm expecting, we're going to cruise into the holidays here.
Cool. Well, anyways, thanks for listening. We'll catch you again next week.
Bye.